Stairs aren't always the answer. Sometimes an access ramp makes more sense. Easier to use, easier to move things up and down, and more versatile. Here's how to add a ramp to your deck that works and looks like it belongs. We have this deck that we've built for these clients, and in this situation, they want to add a ramp to this outside of the deck. They just didn't want to have a step or two to come up onto the deck. They feel like they're going to be using it for ease of access, for older pets, and just for wheeling anything up and into the house that they want. So we're making them a nice 8-foot run by 6-foot wide ramp. It's not ADA compliant, but it's pretty close. We have about a 10-degree slope, which is probably a 2 and 12, more like for every 12 inches of run, we have about 2 inches of rise. So it wouldn't meet a wheelchair accessibility, but that's not what this is designed for. This is just to make it easier for the clients to get things up and down, in and out of the house, that kind of thing. So it's just a gradual slope instead of stairs. We don't do these as often, but we do them, and we have this really great product, this aluminum framing that we have decided to use, because usually when you're building an access ramp or even a wheelchair ramp, as it comes down and the material is square, then you have to cut it on a pitch or a degree, a severe degree, like 75, 80 degrees. And then there's nothing to attach to at the very bottom of the ramp. So I've been trying to develop ways that we can avoid that type of situation, and this happens to be one of them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna frame up a box of aluminum, and aluminum is naturally resistant to decay. So by using aluminum, we're gonna bury this right in the ground. Now we're gonna move a lot of the dirt away, but if there's any earth to aluminum contact, it's not gonna rot, it's not gonna rust, it's not gonna fall apart, it's just gonna stay there for a long time. So we have built this deck out of a product called PWT. It's a treated product that's a laminated veneer lumber. It's called an LVL, but we can't use those LVLs in the dirt, okay? That's why we're going to an aluminum ramp versus an LVL ramp. If this was clean and on concrete and I could keep it elevated, I consider using LVLs, but there's their own challenges in that as well. It's usually that last tiny part of the ramp that has to be shaved so low that there's no way to get fasteners into the bottom of the deck boards unless you're leaving some kind of a thickness. So I'm always looking for ways to build a ramp that make it strong, stable, and be able to work. So that's what we're doing now, is we've kind of got the frame identified. We know where we need to go with our joists, and now we're going to start assembling this thing together, and then we'll be able to deck it out once we have the frame done and the posts and concrete and all the support for the railing. One question you may have is, okay, so you have a level deck coming out, and then you have a ramp that's going to be tilted. How do you know what degree to make it? Well, there's a couple things you have to think about. Is how high is the deck off the ground? What's your projection? And where do you want it to land in the ground? So by taking those averages, we figured out we have about a 10-degree slope. We just took a level right from the top of the deck. What we did is we figured, here's the deck. We took a level, 8 feet, happened to be an 8-foot level. We knew our ramp was 8 feet. So I took the level and let it sit right on the ground. And once I sat it on the ground, then I took a square like this. I took it to where this little bubble was level. And when that bubble's level, and then I have this piece going like this, it came right across this 10-degree mark. So I knew that my angle piece had to be at 10 degrees. Every piece that we made has a 10-degree angle that's gonna be set up against the deck. If we were doing a wood ramp, we'd have to shave the bottom of the framing so that it wasn't buried in the ground. So let's say that this board is, okay, obviously this board is wood, and we wanted to use this as a ramp. First off, we'd have to have a little bit of space. We can't just cut this all the way to here and cut this across like so. There's nothing to put a fastener in right here when we go to screw our decking down, right? So I usually leave maybe 1 inch of material, and I'll cut this on this funky angle at whatever degree. This would be an 80-degree angle. We're cutting all this out so that it would sit either on concrete or out of the dirt. There's a couple different ways I could do it. I could still do this in wood if I want to dig a big pit and not have any earth to wood contact, but that's getting really tricky. And you could do it. Then you could just slap a ledger on the outside of this, or a rim joist, an outside rim joist onto the outside of this ramp, and basically do what we're doing with aluminum, but you can't have any dirt touching this or else it's gonna rot. So that's really not feasible. So normally, or let's just say you're on a concrete slab or somewhere commercial or whatever, like your house, you're onto a sidewalk. So that's where this situation would come into play, where you got to cut this really aggressive angle so that when this sits on the ground, you're almost at basically zero. The problem is, if you don't leave enough material left, you have no way of holding it together. That's why I like to leave it at least 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So I have something, I can put some kind of block, PVC, anything on this thing to hold it together. And then your last screw is gonna be up in here. So the last like 2 or 3 inches of this board probably isn't gonna be attached, or you're gonna have to use shorter screws so that it doesn't poke through the bottom of whatever small piece you have here. So bottoms of ramps can be tricky when you're trying to build them out of decking if you don't have the thickness that you need for the bottom of the ramp. That's why I'm into doing it with aluminum. So that's a brief description on how I would do it in wood if I was going to, but we're not. We're doing this in aluminum, so let's get back to the action. Right now, the guys are framing the bottom side of the staircase. Once that's finished being attached, then we'll worry about connecting it to the top side of the deck. Okay, so we basically have our box framed, our ramp, and it's framed up, and we're connected at the base, and now we're connecting it to the outside rim joist of the deck. Once that's done, everything's to elevation, and then we can square it and put the bottom at elevation. Then we can dig some holes and pour some concrete for the foundation of the ramp so that it doesn't move right, left, up, or down. So that's the next step, just getting it locked in, and then we're good to go. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That's just one way that we build an access ramp. If you like what you saw, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. If you want some swag, click the link below. And don't forget to check out our podcast. Link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.